Hi second graders, it's Mrs. Burke here, back with a geometry video lesson. Your lesson today is going to be so much fun. I just went around my house collecting objects or shapes that we're going to be working with today. So I know you're going to have a really good time doing this. So for today's lesson, they want us to go around the home, find shapes, and then trace them. And once we trace the shapes, we're going to be doing something special with them. And it's an important word known as partition. And when you partition something, it means you divide it into parts. That word part, you see it there, or you separate it. So I'm going to show you what partitioning looks like. So the first step was to go around and collect shapes you see. Now, they use the word shapes, which is important, because they didn't say that our shapes had to be polygons. And if you remember from our other lessons this week, a polygon is a closed figure with straight lines and no lines cross. However, they didn't say it had to be a polygon. So you can look for circles, hearts, objects that have crossing lines in it. So have fun today. Don't just think about polygons, but it can be really any shape that you want. So the first shape I found was off of my refrigerator. I grabbed a magnet. And I know how to identify this shape. This shape is a rectangle. And just because I'm practicing my math vocabulary, I'm also going to say that this is a polygon because it has straight lines, it's a closed figure, and none of my lines cross. So it is a shape, but it's also a polygon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it flat on my paper, and I'm going to trace the shape. So I'm going to put it flat in the middle. 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's a 4-sided shape. So first I'm going to name this. This shape is a rectangle. It has 4 sides. Opposite sides are equal, right? And now they want me to do that magic word, partition this. So first, I'm going to try to partition this into 2 parts. So I'm going to take this to another level, and I'm going to actually try to make my parts equal sizes. So I'm going to think about how could I split this so that I have 2 equal parts. And I think maybe I can go right down the middle this way, right? So now I have 2 equal parts. And I can call this 1 out of the 2 parts, and I can call this 1 out of the 2 parts. Now that last step is not necessary, but if you have a sister or brother at home that are older than you and they've learned all about fractions already, you can have them work with you. But I just wanted to show that this is one of the 2 parts and this piece is one of the 2 parts. And I tried to make them about equal. So my rectangle is now partitioned into 2 parts. Then I kept hunting and hunting and hunting. And I went into my bathroom in the medicine cabinet and I found Band-Aids. Now this box is 3-dimensional, right? It's not flat. It's raised in the air. So I have to think about what part of this I want to trace, because once I trace it onto the paper, it's going to become flat and it's no longer 3D. So I think I want to trace this face or the front of this box. So I'm going to take my paper. You can do yours on the same paper. I had smaller pieces, so I just did it on one paper, but I'm going to trace it. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. And when I look at my shape, I can identify this as a square. All right. Now my square, I'm gonna do something special with this. I'm gonna partition this, but this time I'm gonna try for 4 equal parts. So I'm gonna first cut it in half. Maybe this time I'll do a special cut. I'm gonna go on a diagonal. I'm gonna cut it in half this way. And when I do that, you can see I have 1, 2 equal parts. But now if I cut it in half again on this diagonal going this way, you can see how many equal parts I have now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this square is partitioned into 4 equal parts. So this would be 1 of 4 parts. This is 1 of the 4 parts. This is 1 of the 4 parts. And this is 1 of the 4 parts. And like I said, this fraction part is just an extension. You don't have to label these fractions, but if you want to try and practice and give it a shot, go for it. But for today, we're really just focusing on the partitioning of our shape and the naming of our shape. So this is a square, and I'm also going to say that it's a polygon because it has straight lines, it's closed, and the lines don't cross. And if you watched my video from Tuesday, I could even say that this isn't just a polygon, it's a regular polygon because all of my sides are the same length and my angles are the same size measure. So think about all the vocabulary you've already learned in just 1 week. Okay, I went hunting and hunting and hunting and hunting again, and I found this silly string. It's not mine, I swear, and it's not Mr. Burke's either. It's Danny's. So this silly string is kind of hard to trace, right? Why do you think? Because it's not flat, it's 3D. However, my silly string does have 2 flat surfaces. Right here and right here. We call these faces, okay, or bases even. And the base makes the shape of a circle. So I'm gonna trace that. Right, I can't trace the whole can because the can is 3-dimensional, but I can trace the face of it. And I end up with this shape here. Now I'm gonna give that shape a name, and it's a circle. And now I'm gonna think about my math vocabulary, and I'm gonna say, this is not a polygon, it breaks a rule. It's closed, and the lines don't cross, but it has curved lines, so the lines aren't straight, so I can't call it a polygon, but it is a shape. So it's called a circle. And now I'm going to partition it. Now circles are special because they can be partitioned in so many different ways. So I'm gonna challenge myself again and see if I can do 4 equal parts. So I'm gonna cut it first in half down the middle. So I have 2 equal parts. And now if I cut it in half going the other way, like that, now I have 4 equal parts. And if you remember from my square, the fraction I can give it, this is one of my 4 parts, this piece is one of my 4 parts, this is one of my 4 parts, and that is one of my 4 parts. So I partitioned my circle, which is not a polygon, into 4 equal parts. Okay, 2 more shapes I found as I was hunting. This next one I love. I went in my bedroom and I found a jewelry dish. And look at the shape of my jewelry dish. This is a fun shape, right? So I'm gonna trace it when I can get my paper ready. All right, here I go. And as I'm tracing, I feel my marker moving in a curved shape. And if it's a curved shape, I know something important. This isn't a polygon. It has curved lines, which makes it just a shape. But I'm gonna name this a heart. And now, this one would be kind of tough to think of 4 ways I could make equal parts. So instead of 4, I'm gonna go with my 2, because I know I can cut shapes into 2 equal parts just by splitting them in half down the middle. But here's the thing. I don't wanna cut it in half going this way, and I'll explain why, and if I can open my marker. I don't wanna cut it in half this way, because if I do that, my top has my 2 curved edges, right? But my bottom looks different. So even though it is partitioned, this, I didn't give it an equal partition. It doesn't look the same on the top as it does on the bottom. So it's partitioned, it's cut and separated, but just not equal. I'm trying to practice equal partitions for today. So I'm gonna try to cut it this way, right down the middle. And when I do it this way, this side matches what this side looks like. So now I have an equal partition. So this side is 1 of 2 parts, and this side is 1 of 2 parts. So I have a half and a half. Okay, my final shape. I saved the hardest one for last because I know a lot of you out there like a challenge, so I didn't want to disappoint you. Someone gave this to me a few years ago attached to a gift, and I always love it, and I was hanging it on my walls, and I just saw it there staring at me. Does anybody know what we would call this shape? I can give you a hint. If you count the number of sides, it will help you give it a name. So let's count together. I'm gonna start at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anybody know what you call a 6-sided shape? We call it a hexagon. So I'm gonna trace my hexagon, this is a big one, onto my paper. And also, while you're listening, I'm gonna tell you how I remember that 6-sided shapes are called hexagon. It's a little trick. If I write the number 6, it has an X in it, right? Well, hexagon is gonna be the shape that also has the X in it. So look, if I think of a 5, 5 doesn't have an X in it. If I think of the number an 8-sided shape, 8 doesn't have an X in the number, but 6 has an X in it, just like hexagon has an X in it. So that's how I always remember hexagon, 6 sides. All right, so back to my hexagon shape. All right. Let me write the name, hexagon. And then I want you to think about what we talked about a few minutes ago, about how we can partition this hexagon. My goal today is to practice partitioning into equal parts. So I want to make this one 2 equal parts. So where do you think you would draw your line? So some of you might be thinking, let's do it this way. Some of you might be thinking, cut it right in half like this. If you disagree, shout out why you disagree. Yeah, my top part here doesn't match my bottom. See how here they come in? Not here. The bottom is just a plain old square, but up top here, it doesn't look like a square. So since they don't match shapes, it's partitioned, but not equally. So why don't I try what I did with my heart and go straight down the middle. And there we go. And now if I look, both sides look exactly the same. So this side is one of my 2 pieces, And this side is one of my 2 pieces. So they're both partitioned, and it's partitioned into halves. Okay, so that's today's assignment. I hope you have a lot of fun with it. Remember, if you find some 3D shapes, you can still trace them, but make sure you're tracing the bases of it. And as you're practicing today, ask yourself questions like, could I call this shape a polygon? Is this shape a regular polygon or an irregular polygon? And practice using that new word partition, because you're going to be doing some more work with that in the upcoming lessons. Okay? Have fun. Really proud of you guys, and I miss everyone. See you soon, Stewart School.